Well, I am really, really, really excited to have Christian and Cheryl Fisher in the Fully Alive studio today, coming to you from what they say is West Virginia. But anybody who has seen where they are on the map knows it's really the suburbs of Washington, D.C. The Fishers have been friends for about 13 years now. Christian was actually in the very first Disciples Made group that started in January 2011, I think either at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Both have been huge supporters of Disciples Made since their inception as a ministry. And one of the themes that has stuck out to me in my interactions with them over the years is the word intentionality. They are intentional about everything. I think that they're even intentional in their unintentional time. I've I've heard about the intentionality specifically with family, with church, with mission, with work. Can't wait for you to learn from what they've experienced over the years through that effort. Christian and Cheryl, so glad that you are here.
Thank you, Brian. We are so glad to be here.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, Cheryl. So let's start with you. Just like your family, jobs, hobbies, season of life, whatever.
Yeah, of course. So thank you. I guess I would say that we, as a family, there's a lot of things that we enjoy together. So this is speaking for me, but it's also speaking for us and even our family as a whole. So we love, hobbies would be doing anything outdoors. We love to be active. We love to be outdoors. We're thankful for the area and the region we're in. We're excited for hiking opportunities and being in the mountains, camping. Those are some of the really big, just fun things that we enjoy, God's creation. And as a family, we really like working on Chevy trucks and restoring older ones. And Christian and our oldest son are currently doing that for his first truck. All of our children at one point have said they would love to restore and build a truck with Dad.
Oh, awesome.
Precious, yes. So that's a really fun, I think, about us with hobbies. And then we're new in our current community. So season of life is we have 5 children, 4 teenagers and 1 who thinks he's a teenager. And my husband has a full and demanding schedule. And to accomplish what he's called to do, but as our family, we're on mission together. And to accomplish what we're called to as a family, we are really focusing on a couple of different things in this season of life. And one of those, I would say, is that we work within concentric circles and we focus within our home first and build that foundation, really work within that foundation. And then anything we do that's outside of that builds from that point. And that's been intentionality that God put in us long before we were in the season of life that we're currently in. And oh my goodness, are we grateful. So as I mentioned, Christian has a demanding schedule to accomplish what he's called to with work. And he's also completing a master's degree. We're a homeschool family with 5 different grade levels, 2 different languages, and 1 who is dual enrolled in college at the moment. So my job is to make sure our family runs smoothly and runs on time. And it's a work and a calling that I absolutely love. It's to manage the logistics with faith and with school, with character growth, with fun and activities outside of our home. So Christian and I are very purposeful. And with that, it's important to us that we live life with that concept of the concentric circles, like I mentioned, in our home being our innermost circle, where we build into each other, we build into our family, and first and foremost, we build into our relationship with God, with our faith, and then build into our community. So no, is it a good time to talk about our... Oh, wait, we'll do that in a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kristen, if there's anything to add as far as work, hobbies, Cheryl, I think has mentioned 2 of the concentric circles, family, then community. I don't know if there are others. If you want to fill that in as you share this part.
Yeah. So the 5 kids is an exciting time. One starting college, and she mentioned Aiden.
Crazy.
Yeah, we think so too. Aiden's about to turn 16, so you mentioned intentionality, which I think is a word that's used a lot, but application is highly important to us. And so we love rebuilding old Chevy trucks because it's specific time that can foster conversations and talk through character. And so it's not cheaper or more efficient, but it's better. And so making sure that we do things that engage our kids at a heart level and a hands level is something we think about a lot. But yeah, so family, I have a list of core values. My number one core value is succeed at home first, because my job can easily replace me, but my family cannot. So
hold on. Give people a minute to take that one in. Say that one again, because that's worth a highlight.
My job is to succeed at home first, because my job can easily replace me, but my family cannot. So from a priority standpoint, I have to work, because you can imagine feeding 5 teenagers. But my priority and focus is at home first. So
That's so helpful.
But yeah, we're engaged a lot with work, with community, with church. Those are obviously contexts we're called to, and places that we engage with. So you mentioned the concentric circles, but those are certainly ones we work in and are excited about. I do think with our youngest 3 are adopted, and they've been with us right at 3 years. That was a bit of a reset with being outside the home, and an opportunity to reestablish and to engage with them. But yeah, I think Cheryl hit it really well. I don't think I have anything to add.
Additional to add.
Gotcha.
We love life.
So
We live life very full.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it was already full with 2 children. But as you just alluded to, 3 years ago now, I guess, your family almost doubled. Tell us a little bit more about that you can, and what led to that decision.
So I think Christian will have some fun things to share. I'll start with Brian sharing something that just shows the power of God in a really cool story. So our oldest is about to turn 18. Second oldest is about to turn 16. And our second oldest, our boy, when he was 6 months old, we had some interesting turn of events that led us to be very purposeful with prayer about what family looked like, what continuing to grow our family looked like. And we both purposed to pray separately for a decided amount of time, and then come together and share, this is what we think is the direction, what we're being called to. And we did that, and we both came back together and said, we're to expand our family through fostering and adopting. And you fast forward that several years, there's a lot of waiting that went into that. I would dare say even a lot of questions of that too, because we did not adopt until 3 years ago, when our boy, who was 6 months old, was 13. So with that, when we met our youngest 3, who are siblings, we found out that the oldest of that group and our second oldest, Aiden and George, they are what we call artificial twins, because they're 11 months apart. Wow. And George was in utero when we felt called to adopt one day. And just the power of waiting and obedience and seeing God at work is something that has been massively encouraging for us through this whole process. So with that, can you talk?
Yeah. I always tear up a little bit when she tells that story. But yeah, to think that God was calling us while our kids were, growing up on another continent, another country, is pretty crazy. But from a more maybe practical standpoint, Cheryl and I both grew up not super poor, but reasonably, we were not well off. And one thing that we knew was that if we had an opportunity to make an impact, we wanted to. And so we did some specific research. And if anybody that's been around adoption knows that newborns are high demand. If any newborn that is put up for adoption will be adopted, there'll be a competition even. And so kids that need to be adopted typically have disabilities or some other concerns, or like our kids in Colombia, once a kid is 6 years old, they're kind of undesirable. And beyond that, they won't split up siblings. So when our three were put into the foster system, they were doubly undesirable. They were too old and a package deal. And so most people are not interested in adopting older kids and more than one. And so it was pretty crazy. We felt called to do this. We started engaging, and from from starting the process to bringing them home was less than a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's because I think they didn't want us to change our minds. They were like, let's fast track this deal, right? But, God called us to do that. And it was an opportunity to adopt kids that wouldn't have a family otherwise. And so pretty cool that he called us to it, really 12 years earlier. But just the timing around it was insane. We can tell you story after story about
I bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
that lining up. But yeah, so now we have 5 kids.
Now, as an observer, one who's just kind of listened to the story but not been involved with the decisions between, here and there, one of the things I remember thinking is, and maybe even asking you about when one of those trips out to Spartanburg that we had over that time was, how well will your biological children deal with that? Because it's not like they're welcoming a newborn as well. They're inviting people in that will change the dynamic significantly, a dynamic that they've been used to for years. So since you had this conversation and knew that this was the step for many years, since Aiden was a year old, so 13 years, how often would you, going back to that word intentionality, communicate this vision, and to what degree do you think that has helped prepare them for the lack of a better word, the disruption to the norm? How do you, like, I see you giggling a little bit, so I'm assuming there's some good fodder here.
I'm gonna answer this one real quick, and then Cheryl's better looking and smarter, which makes me very thankful that God put us together. But so let me jump in real quick. But Brian, when we moved from Kansas City, we moved to El Paso, Texas,
right?
And so we spent a tremendous amount of time in Juarez, Mexico, at an orphanage where they speak Spanish. Well, Aiden and Angie were growing up. And so that's always been, that type of thing has been a part of their life. The other thing, and probably the reason I was smiling, was we tell our kids, we're not raising you to revel in childhood. Our stated objective is to raise you to be an adult. So we had the conversation with them. They were part of we always joke that the family votes on things. Each of them get a vote, and Cheryl and I have 2 votes apiece. So
we always win.
Double that now.
Yes.
They know and have been talked to and lived out that our life is to serve others, to engage with others. And I'll tell you, it's been a lot. You can imagine adopting 3 kids with massive trauma in their background and
Yes.
all the things that go with that.
Yeah.
But Angie's objective is to be a bilingual pediatrician.
Long before all of this,
Wow.
that's been something that that's been her mission, that's been her purpose, that's been her focus.
So it really was a pretty smooth transition. And I say smooth transition as far as that aspect goes.
Sure.
And Angie and Aiden are part of the team that are engaging the youngest 3. And it's been pretty cool to see. But because it's been a part of our life, it wasn't a big change because it was what we talked about and lived
A lot
out.
of focus.
And
And
so
we definitely talked about how it's all of our mission to love these children well and bring them in. It's not just mom and dad, and then you guys are bystanders, or, and much of how we live life is it's not circumstantial anyway. That's a part of our intentionality of, this is an opportunity for inward growth, internal growth, internal relationship deepening with your father, and then internal relationship deepening with your parents, and then, added opportunity with siblings. I think Aiden's biggest question when all of this was becoming more and more a reality was his concern was clearly about food. I still very much remember him asking.
Which is why Christian has to work so much. That's what you were saying earlier anyway.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
I remember him very much asking, am I going to have to give up all of my pizza? That was a really big one. So
hysterical. I love that. So a couple of things. You've taught them all along that life isn't about us.
Yeah.
You've taught them all along that childhood is not about reveling in childhood. I love that phrase, but I'm here to train you to be a healthy, Christ-centered, others-giving adult. That's what this is. And you modeled the activity in your engagement in Juarez, which is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the most dangerous cities on our border, period.
It was the number 1 dangerous city in the world.
I was afraid to go that far, but that's kind of what I had assumed from some things that I've seen, movies and news reports, etc. So you've modeled it all along. So all those 3 things, very, very intentional. The thing I really want to make sure everybody gets, all those are big, but how you bring the children into the family decisions.
Yeah.
We did the same thing, way back when the kids were 4 and 5. We're thinking about planting a church. That is going to cost us by A, B, and C. It's going to be, mom and dad think it's probably the best thing because of D, E, and F. And we want to hear what you have to say. I share that. And it's happened every phase of stuff that we've done. What would you say has been the best part of that and the worst part of that? I don't want to spend a ton of time in this, but if there's an extra little nuance to catch from that decision, that might be a new one for people.
You mean engaging the kids around decision making?
Decision making, a vote, strategy in doing it, any other lessons learned in the process, because this is such a big deal. Parents are like, well, I'm the parent, I get to decide. It's like, well, that's a really weak way to go about it. There's so much more. But there's also some lessons that can be learned about how to do it well.
Well, and I think one thing that I'll say, and then I could tell you had something to say, is the focus on emotional intelligence for our children, because we are ultimately wanting to raise them and train them as if this is, a race, an athletic sport. We are going to get tired. Things are going to be hard, but because we're making the decision that that's what we're doing, the training doesn't stop. The focus and the filter is there. But then it's the emotional intelligence factor that it helps them to grow and be able to work through in a safe environment. Our home, growing up in that culture is how we do things. So growing up in that environment and that culture of learning how to deal with some really tough things and questions, and not being afraid to bring that to the table and talk it through and figure out what they actually believe and what their core values are. So So I'll tee that off to you.
Yeah. So great.
Real quick question before you jump in, if you don't mind. Cheryl used a phrase, emotional intelligence, that's a very specific thing that I don't know that a whole lot of people know a ton about. Did you have a particular resource that when you say emotional intelligence that informs that other people might be aware of? A book, a podcast, or is it just a way of life?
That's just a way of life. I'm sure there is something for sure.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe you know something, but just a way of life of being able to recognize, I'm going to have these emotions and feelings, but they don't master and control me. And the more I recognize how to work through them and live through them, it really does provide us with the opportunity to deal with anything that comes our way and navigate any storm that comes within our lives, because they do.
Master's level summary of the topic, but you can Google emotional intelligence, and it's a fantastic field to research if you're not familiar with it. That's out just for our listeners there. I didn't want that to pass without bringing a highlight to it. So sorry, Christian, I put you on pause there for a second.
Oh, that's good. So I think two things I'd love to highlight here is first, we look at things, people, outcomes, and if it works well, we emulate. If it doesn't, we adjust. And raising children, there's two things I want to bring up. First of all, we don't go to our children, we pull them into what we're doing. And so if I'm doing something, I involve the children instead of, I don't go play video games with them. I don't go do, and not that that's bad, but we have decided that we want to train them in decision making and how life works. And so we pull them in. We've moved all over the country for my job, which has been fantastic. But we literally sat the kids down and said, hey, when you're looking for a church, this is how you do it. These are the factors that we look for. This is how we engage. We sit down with them and talk about, when it comes to finances, this is how you save. This is how you invest. This is how you spend. And so we pull the kids into every decision because we're their parents, and it's our job to train them to make decisions and to engage. So I think the first one's that we pull them in instead of, we don't go to their world, we pull them into ours for decision making. And it's funny, the downside to this, I don't think there is one. It just
it's a lot of work.
It means
there's a lot of communication, a lot of conversations. So, and that's not a downside. That's what you're investing in.
I'll tell you though, too, we have a 17-year-old that absolutely loves her parents, that likes to spend time with us. Same thing with our 15-year-old. And so the results are what we're looking for. So we're probably going to keep up with the input. But Angie's, when she turned 17, we talked about doing it earlier than this, but our 17-year-old has 0 rules, not a single rule. And so we want her to fail fast and fail forward in our home.
Fail safe. Yeah.
That's better. I like fail safe. Anyway, we just it's part of what we do is talk about how life works. And so it really is not like, hey, we pulled them into this specific decision. We talk about everything.
Yeah.
That's good. I remember one of the things I've always told people, I've always told people this is how that Carol and I did it with our kids. It's like, it's my job to get you to have the least amount of rules that you have to obey in my house as possible. And they were thought that that's just, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, you master the ones I give you.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, because my job is to help you become that. Maybe we talked about these things 13, 14 years ago and learned from each other in this whole process, but how valuable that is. And it seems like a lot of parents on the call might be thinking, well, I've got to exert my authority to make sure that my kids obey. And this sounds like quite the opposite. It's like, no. My goal really is for you to integrate the best ways to live into your life. Because if you do that, you don't really have rules. You've already embedded those principles into your own soul. And
Absolutely.
that's what we were after. And the kids were incentivized because they didn't understand the difference between rules and being governed by a self, an emotionally intelligent self. So that's good.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I think another important part of all that is just remembering, for parents specifically, like that is our role. We are the parent, and our children do not have anyone else in their lives that has that same unique role as that relationship. And so it's just the reminder, as we've adopted the youngest three without such a situation, what it looks like to establish that your kid, your child, or parent, it's a really important role, that it's not to be argued over or even, I'm trying to think of what the word is, but there's no tug and pull over that. It's just like, hey, that's who we are and this is who you are. And there's that relationship is very special and very unique, and God has absolutely intended it that way.
Wow. You got to experience the clash of two family worldviews and
Yeah.
figure out in real time how to integrate those, which is a lot of little conversations, I assume,
Yes.
over time. Whew. I'm reading your faces here. Oh boy. That's how Christian lost his hair. No, he lost his hair a long time ago. Oh, so interesting question. So I want to go and talk about how you've talked about how you integrate intentionality into family. Some, maybe there's more. They want to talk about church and mission and work itself in particular. But before there, we've used two words interchangeably, and I want to just ask quickly, what do you see as the difference and which one's most helpful? And I've kind of pitched the beginning of this podcast is your word is intentionality. You do everything intentionally. Then you had there's some caution. A lot of people overuse that word perhaps or whatnot. Then you've also interchanged the word purposeful. Um, I would love to, for the purposes of this podcast and just because of who you are, obviously they have heard now how intentional or thoughtful or purposeful you are with all of these things. What's the best word, and what sense of overuse are we wanting to avoid so that we actually land on the best thing? Does that question make sense?
It does make sense. And I don't know, you might have a better way to answer it, Christian. The first thing that comes to my mind is intentionality is the right word. It's also joined with consciously aware.
That's really good.
So I don't know if you're able to put all that into one word, but
Yeah, this may be a roundabout answer that answers the question, Brian. And I love the intentionality was definitely a buzzword for a while. And I think those buzzwords come in and out and mean different things. But what intentionality means for us is we plan, we do, we check, we act.
yeah.
Plan, do, check, act. And so there's a feedback loop that we adjust when things are not where we want them to be. And we started this exercise probably, it was a long time ago. I'd have to look. I have it documented. But once a year, we sit down and plan annual goals. We have a 5-year goal and a 10-year goal. And then we plan our activities around getting there. It's super fun to look back at what we planned 10 years ago for today and have it in writing. And we plan for faith, family, finances, future, education, and fun. And we plan those out we start with 10-year, which the 10-year picture informs the 5-year, which informs the 1 year, which informs
EOS for family. I'm digging this.
Boom. That's it. So intentionality just means that we know where we want to go and we're following a map to get there.
Yeah.
And so life doesn't happen to us. We happen to life. And so when we plan for tough things and we plan for opportunities, but I've shared this with folks. A lot of times there's marriage strife because there's a goal, but we haven't talked about the cost that comes with the goal. And so one spouse is not willing to pay the price for the goal because we haven't talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so intentionality is just knowing where you're going, knowing the cost of getting there,
Mm-hmm.
agreeing on the cost, and then doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oof.
it's a long answer, but.
And I think
That
that
is chock full of wisdom. Can you list so we're talking about family here. And when it comes to family, and a lot of these are going to be probably taken right over into other things. You said faith, fun, finances, education. I've got 4.
physical fitness,
Physical fitness,
work,
work,
church and ministry.
church and ministry.
Are you looking up our goals?
Yeah, I was going to just pull it up. And
Talk about being on the spot. It's like, okay, I've got these right here. This is great. By the way, while he's looking that up, I've made that joke of EOS.
Yeah.
There's a fantastic book out there called Traction by Gino Wickman that talks about EOS, the entrepreneur's operating system. It's got the big 10-year goal. It's got the 3-year picture. You got the 1 year. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. This is crazy, Brian. I was introduced to EOS and Gino Wickman from a boss I had that was absolutely fantastic. And I loved this boss. So I kind of backed into it. But it's fun when you read a book and you're like, oh man, I missed the opportunity to write the book.
Yes.
Yes. We've been doing that for a while. I'm sure Gino had been too. So spiritual, family, school, physical, financial, and business.
Just the work. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mixed up Cheryl and I have a ongoing discussion about whole life, and it ties it absolutely into fully alive. But we call it, just from a faith standpoint, our faith needs to inform our worldview and disciplines, but also family, fitness, finance, friendship, fun, and future.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are we're like, how do we make sure that our faith is informing our future plans and what we're doing for fun and how we're friends and who we choose to spend time with? Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know if this is appropriate to interject this right now. Or not. I think it is. So talking about all of that, those are all some pretty big concepts and almost can seem out of reach. And what we do is it starts very, very small. It starts with every single day and the habits and the decisions we make. And just as an example, so Christian and I start every single day together early. We get up early, do our quiet time, have a cup of coffee, and after our quiet time, we spend time connecting together and sharing our plans for the day, and then take that and purposely pray over each other every single day based on what we have going. And this is really our springboard into everyday life. And that then, I see Christian off to work, giving him the opportunity with what he needs to succeed for the day. And then we step into homeschooling for the day. But then, as he mentioned earlier, with the rhythms, we go through the whole day, but then at the end of the day, we always come back after the kids are in bed, no matter how tired we are and how long it may or may not be. We spend time connecting back together at the end of the day, just discussing the wins, the challenges, the opportunities for improvement. And that's just a continual loop that we do every single day that's been for years and so helpful to be able to inform the other things that we were just talking about that are a little bit grander or bigger, so they seem.
And Brian, yeah. I wanted to mention one other thing. If somebody's listening to this and they go, wow, okay, right. Sure. How can I do that? Trajectory over location.
Yeah.
So
trajectory over location, explain that a little bit.
So improvement over a lot of people focus on where we're at currently, mm-hmm. or where they're at currently, but the focus is improvement. It's knowing where you're going. It's calling it out. So you tell a couple, hey, be intentional with your kids, raise them in the right way, do all these things, blah, 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 have a quiet time every morning, have a check-in with your spouse every night, have 10-year goals. That can seem like a lot, but if somebody's looking for a nugget, it's pick something and grow. Pick something and apply it. You don't have to do all this at one time. We've been doing this for 25 years.
Good.
We just celebrated 25 years of marriage. And
congrats.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. But we didn't start where we're at today. We had to say, hey, we want to be somewhere else. The world doesn't look like it's the act to follow. Let's pick something else and let's be intentional. So just trajectory over location.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's a lot of places you describe being intentional. I would love to just pick on two, and I'm just going to assume we've covered family at this point. I'm looking at the clock and realizing we've given ourselves time, a time constraint here. When there's a lot of people that as they grow more fully alive, as they grow, can't remember the term you said, holistic life, that church for some people, like attending regularly at a local congregation, feels less necessary because they've got habits, they've got rhythms, they've got all of this. Carol and I have chosen, whether it's necessary or not, that we choose to make it a part of our life, but we're very thoughtful and intentional about our relationship with that. How do you bring your intentionality to a local church congregation? A little more from me on that side. I believe that we as people are the church. Your home is clearly an action of the church. It's not a local congregation, but we are the called out ones of Jesus, which is the ecclesia. And so that's a whole ecclesiological conversation that we're not going to have. But when it comes to you guys deciding how you're going to engage a local congregation, how do you go about that selection? And what is your posture as relates to that local congregation, knowing that you are a healthy church just within the constraints of your own home?
Yeah, what a fabulous question. And I think it's a really important question. So first and foremost, I think the biggest thing with us being in a newer community, even, it's all very fresh for us, and taking time, intentional, there is a lot of joy and a lot of good in just taking time and not trying to jump in too fast. So we're very intentional with prayer and thinking through where we're going to engage. But then just showing up, it's that consistent cumulative effect and impact, because truly we are the church, and it is our body of believers is our family, right? And so it's how we get to engage and invest in something beyond ourselves that really has a capacity to reach into bigger circles of the community. And that's all connected, and it's all just understanding that perspective that it's connected. And I don't know if you have something to add on to that aspect.
You're brilliant. I should hang out with you more.
It was really intelligent. I'm glowing with that response. I was like, I'm glad I asked that because that was spot on.
Oh, thank you.
So Brian, I think a couple things from a practical standpoint. And you hit the nail on the head. If you and I've had a few conversations about this, but if you were dropped in the middle of nowhere with a Bible and you flipped open to Acts and you said, we're gonna start a church, I don't know that it would look exactly like the church in the United States. And you said something that has stuck with me, is like, the church is the bride of Christ. So it's important how we approach
Amen.
the subject and love her well and to engage. But two quick comments. One's massively practical. The other's probably a little pie in the sky. But as we're looking for a church, we will not join a church that we can't go out to a meal with the pastor and know his heart well.
That was one thing for us.
And so we've been at some places where we didn't get to engage with that. And seeing somebody on a screen or on social media, it's hard to really understand their heart. And it's disappointing to find out that it wasn't exactly what we thought later on. So knowing the shepherd is really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the really practical one. The second one, I think how we approach church reveals our maturity.
Mm.
And so this might sting a little bit for some people. And if it does,
it's okay to sting around here.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm assuming we've been stung a lot, right? That's how we...
If we approach church with what we can get out of it, it reveals much more about us than the church. And so our approach is to show up and to add value, not to extract value. And so, of course, there's broken people there.
Aren't we thankful?
Yes. Of course, it's not
It means
perfect.
we're welcomed. Yeah.
But the concept of attending church to extract value, only so many people can extract value and there be anything left.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go and we say, hey, how can we add value to other people? And that's been a growth over time. But I would say that can be a bellwether for maturity.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody shows up and I don't like the music and the children's pastor's a turd and whatever, well, get a guitar and start teaching children, right?
Yeah.
So I think recognizing not putting the church in a place that it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go to church to get what they should be getting in
or
some
with
other
expectations, right?
In a different place. So I think we engage with the local church is we find one where we trust the pastor's heart, and have talked to them specifically and understand where that's going, because we have to be willing to follow and engage, and that's not hard. You get it. Somebody loves Jesus. You're like, okay, I can go do that with you.
Yeah.
And then we show up and go, hey, where can we make the biggest impact?
And we're willing and flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that's again just master's level summary of how to best engage that, and thank you for that. It's huge. Jesus, I'm just going back to his phrase, it's better to give than to receive, but it's usually in the giving that we end up receiving something we didn't expect to get, and it's more valuable than what we thought we wanted in the first place.
Yep.
And I found that to be true in having that posture toward the church. Like I said earlier, there's people that become more dependent upon the Spirit of God and his leadership in your life than the quote unquote local congregation. And I choose to not say church because we're all the church. I'm trying to separate that in my head. Right. And so if your mentality is, well, I don't get anything out of it, and that's your reason for not going, then you've really missed the perspective that you have invited us to embrace, which is, I don't go there to extract value. I go there to add value. And in the process, we receive a better value over time. And I love how you're looking for, like, if you can trust the heart, you can follow their strategy, even if you don't think it's the best strategy, right? I'm assuming that that's something that you found to be true. And then secondly, you only want to add value where that value makes sense for those who are in the leadership of it. So that's so worth its weight in gold. I can't wait to listen to this podcast for myself again and just bury these values into my own life. Okay, let's shift the conversation then to work. And this is for both of you, because I think I would rather do Christian's job than run a homeschool. I think I'm way more qualified for that. But Christian, let's start with you. Like, what's your approach to work? And then Cheryl would love to hear how unique that is to family and perspective. So,
yeah.
Well, this is something that has definitely matured in me, and I hope continues to mature. I think one of my favorite books on this subject is Spiritual Leadership by Oswald Sanders.
Sanders, yeah.
But the thing, I guess, I'm a senior leader at a Fortune 500 company. And so I get to see a lot of things. It's pretty cool. Where I'm going with this is my objective with work is to add value to other people through my resources and opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the nugget there that has been so...
That's a nugget. Yeah. I want you to say that again. My strategy at work is to add value. What was the rest of it? Because that's all important. That you've said that before. That's not accidental.
It's to add value to people through my resources and opportunities.
Yeah.
So what I've been given, it's my job to give it to other people. And so that means creating a fantastic work environment. It means developing people. It means doing my job well for shareholders. It means engaging well with the community. So with the resources and opportunities that I've been given, I need to take that and multiply it for the value of people. Yeah. For the good of
people.
But here's the interesting dichotomy. As I've had more positional leadership, I realized that if I actually live that out, the more opportunity I have, the tougher it is, the harder it is to work. To be a good leader means I have to have broader shoulders and give away more. I have to do. So one of the things I look for when I'm looking for leaders is people that lead for the good of the people that follow them, not their own good. And so a lot of people want the trappings that come with leadership. Very few people want the work that comes with it and the service to do it well. And it means going last. It means showing up early, staying late, serving other people, taking the worst job, and serving other people. And so when you have more people to serve, it becomes more effort. So anyway, I think the quick one for me is it's really important that I take my resources and opportunities and use it to serve people. And the good thing with that is people are really attracted to work in an environment like that. And so that's helpful. But if the people I work with know that Christian's absolutely got your back, and I'm going to do everything I can to develop you and be honest with you, and I'm not doing it for my good. Like, I'll put the people's good that work for me before me. Then yeah, I think that's the leadership that I'm called to.
Yeah, the intentionality at work is you are 100% a shepherd of your people.
Yeah.
And that's
Cheryl, before we jump into you, I kind of want to go back, and I don't want to get caught on a rabbit trail on this but I want to go at least a little bit. So Jesus' idea that the first shall be last and the last shall be first isn't just a neat little bumper sticker. It's actually a growth strategy, is what I heard Christians say. And I've found this to be true because the more you have that perspective, like, I've been given this position to steward those who are in the reporting to me. Well, actually in every part of the circle. But the more I'm faithful to that, the more I actually gain more capacity and more responsibility. It's like an inverse of perceived earthly logic. That's my best way to say it. And you only know it if you do it. Like, what's it that if you know, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
But
that is so big. So said that, and then I want to go here. There's a lot of people that ask the question, how can I be the best? This isn't the right word. The best player for Jesus at work. How can I be the most effective for Jesus at work? And it's usually like, well, I'm just going to put a little copy of a Bible on my desk, or a little slogan, or
A
I'm
track
going to do,
journal.
yeah, I'm going to share Jesus. Like, there's all these strategies of that. And then you are basically creating an environment where you add value to people. So I hate when I get my brain's thinking too fast. My mouth can't catch up, but I'm assuming that I'll shortcut it. I'm assuming that adding that much value to people creates environments where people pursue private conversations with you that are spiritual in nature, that actually render more spiritual fruit than any other strategy. So I've got that out. Is that close to being on target, or what?
Mm-hmm.
Right in the middle. You nailed it.
Right on target.
So it's almost as if you go to try to get a sticker on your helmet for Jesus, it's going to be hard to get one. But if you actually go in and follow Jesus' strategy for investing in others, it creates the space for the helmet to be overwhelmed, so to speak.
Yes.
You got it.
Oof, that's big. Okay. So before I get lost, Cheryl, how about you, as you, like, your job is keeping the family on time? I felt like a train station, like an Amtrak station. Cheryl's an Amtrak manager. As you approach that as work, what additional insights, apart from what you've already shared with family, would you say is your intentionality there?
I feel like that's a really big topic and not easy to condense at the moment. So help me out if you think of
There
something.
may be so much overlap that it's a moot question. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, is there's just tremendous overlap. And it's, the way that we do life is, linking arms, but always outward focus. So, that's a huge part of it. The intentionality is just there with every day. My planner and my calendar don't master me, but they are definitely a huge tool
To get there, yeah.
things to be successful. And I don't know if there's something you can think of. I feel like we've definitely covered a lot of the things. We've had, so language acquisition has been a big part of our youngest three. And also they came from a place where they didn't really have a background of academic availability. Sure. And so catching them up, it's all been.
That's a really nice way to say that we adopted three kids that had never been to school or speak English. And Cheryl's been handling standardized testing in English for them. And they're doing almost caught up in 3 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Takes a ton of intentionality. But I guess the biggest point it all stems from, it all springs from, I know what I'm called to, and my focus is on hitting that target of what I'm called to and not allowing distractions, which are plentiful and very easy. And so just being very, very intentional with the work that I do, the rest that comes from the work that I do. And I think that we just not compartmentalizing is another part of it. So that the intentionality really is a tapestry that is woven through our entire lives with everything that we, it's not, hey, I'm going to focus on this over here, which has nothing to do with my focus over here. It's all blended together, which goes back to that concentric circle focus of we start here within our family and then we just grow from out, which does mean that we say a lot of no's, and that means that, the no's provide opportunity for better yeses. And those are the reality of homeschool life. And in our Fisher 7 life.
Fisher 7. That's the last question I had before giving you an opportunity to turn back a question on me. Is like, intentionality takes energy. You've demonstrated that. Intentionality has tons of advantages. You've clearly demonstrated that in multiple facets of life. And you started to talk about some costs, the no's. What are the honest costs to living intentionally? And you don't have to demonstrate, well, the values outweigh the cost or anything like that, but what are the things that you think you miss out on that are worth it?
Maybe you have a specific answer for Brian with that. the one thing I think of is the costs of intentionality are often, and maybe not often, sometimes being misunderstood is a big part of it.
Mm.
And I think the costs are always worth it also. So what would you say?
Those who lead and live well will be exhausted. And it's okay.
It's a good thing.
I would say we wring every minute out of the day.
Clearly.
But that's something that we've talked about and that we do on purpose and with purpose. I would say costs are comfort, security. The misunderstood, that was a good one.
That's a big, yeah, it sure is.
But I wouldn't change it for anything. And so this is one of my favorite sayings, is the late Charlie Munger said, following the herd invites regression to the mean. And so we don't do a lot of leisure things. We've joked, like, I did tell Cheryl, if I ever come to you and tell you that I want to adopt more kids, somebody's taken over my body, it's not me.
I realize there's capacity.
Just it's tell me no.
And we may have gone over capacity.
Yeah. We do occasionally sit around and talk about what would we do if we had just some evenings available. But
we do purpose to put some of those in there.
Yeah, we
on occasion too. And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think just kind of overarching, we're built and created to work for, relationship with Christ, and then everything that spills from that. And so, I work. Am I saying it correctly? My brain's a little tired. I work to rest. I don't rest to work. Is that correct? Am I saying that?
I'd have to sit and think about that one for a minute. That's a pretty heavy equation right there.
Yeah.
I like it though.
Just thinking in terms of, what we're doing with intentionality, with being consciously aware of how we're living our lives and what's going on around us and the people that are in our lives, and, the connections that we're making, and wanting to add value. All of that does lead to the cost of being exhausted, but it's a good cost. And I think something I've definitely learned is if I can't find rest easily, then there is something to go to the Lord and seek out, because there's something to work through with Him.
That could be a warning sign on the dashboard. Yeah. Yeah.
So the cost.
Sorry, Cheryl. I thought you were done.
You're good.
What you're making me picture, what the picture that's coming to my mind as you share these things, is if you've watched The Chosen, the fantastic show. I can't remember whether it's on Amazon or what, but Angel Studios has put it out. Jesus is running right up into the yellow. Like green is the engine's running fine, yellow is getting a little warm and hot, red is hot. He's in the yellow a lot, and serving people. And he's definitely always intentional with every waking breath. And it usually takes most of his time and energy, which apparently if he did it that way and still had the margin to do the other intentional things, that's pretty healthy if that's what he did. And that's the record we have. The other is you just look at, glean the wisdom from Ecclesiastes, from Solomon, and compare that to like, it's the Erickson's life stages, I believe. It's like in our season of life where we can be the most intentional, the most productive, to use kind of his terms, we'll all get to, if you're fortunate enough to live this long, get to this point where you're still aware, you're still consciously aware, but you're not able to act on the things. And most of your time for doing that is behind you. If you didn't live with intentionality back here, there's more room for regret at that point. But the more you live with intentionality, and assuming we had our ladder up against the right wall with that intentionality, which you've demonstrated a lot of wisdom to make me believe that that's exactly where you are. The amount of, like, I think Erickson's last stage is integrity versus despair. And those moments at the end of life when all you can do is look back and assess how well you live. You'll either live with integrity or with despair. And it's probably going to be a percentage of, of both. But the more you live with intentionality in the years that you can, the assumption is that you'll have that much of a percentage of integrity versus despair at the end. And that motivates me and has since I was in my late 20s.
Wow.
Hey, Brian, I don't know. I hope this is valuable. Maybe unpack this a little different, but I think for us specifically, is like, because we know that my job at work is to add value to people, I can get up and go do it, and I'm living what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Fair.
And Cheryl's job is to raise adults, and that means, I was going to say, she was talking very modestly. I don't know how many times it's Saturday night and she's grading papers and putting together, like, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. It is a lot. But when I see people, and I think do you think Paul was like, hey guys, look at the time. Gonna have to check out
people falling out of buildings that he's still preaching over time.
But like, and again, I don't know if I'm articulating this. I think a lot of people, like, I have to rest. Rest is so important. There's this big focus on rest. But I think that comes from not doing what we're called to well. And so it's exhausting in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so, like, man, if we're called to do something, let's kill it. Let's put all in. And so what is fun for us is work. And not in a negative way or a workaholic way, but it's like, this is what we're called to. Let's get it done. Let's nail it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes if there's a missed focus, and rest is so important, getting those things right. And we do that. But sometimes I think our society now can put those in some, rest is really important, and all work is, I'll give 62% some of the time, but I'm going to give 100% to rest. So it just,
that's a really wise thing. And Cheryl, your equation earlier, like, I rest to work, not work to rest. And I think it was, I rest so that I can work. I rest responsibly, so that I can work well, not work to rest. Yeah. I think I caught you right on that. And the other thing is that you said, I'll try to crystallize it a little bit, is my motive is the fuel.
Yeah. That's right.
Like, if I go to a job in order to serve the man so the man can make money, I have no motive that's fuel. It's just, I'm earning a paycheck, and I've got a transactional relationship. If you engage it as mission intentionally, as a way to go and add value to people, just like the church, then it takes on a whole new thing.
Yep.
Well, and you'll hear something too. I love that the motivation is the fuel. That's I'm going to hang on to that one. But if you hear the consistency, we said the same thing about family as church, work. It's all the same thing. How do we add value? How do we engage around the? So I'm much less people ask. I'm much less engaged with, like, I'm not my job. I'm 0% my job, right? It's just what I do. But I live out what I'm supposed to, no matter where I'm working or who I'm around. And so anyway.
Amen. And there's your senior manager in a top 500 company right there. All right. So one last question. We're over time, but I got to do it. It's called the turn it back question. So oftentimes when I am being interviewed on someone else's podcast, I think of questions I want to ask them. And so if there was any time in the conversations today, you're like, well, I want to turn this question on Phipps, what would it be? And we'll wrap with that.
I'm changing the question completely, and I'm just.
Oh boy, now I'm on the spot. I love it.
Yeah. So it's fun, Brian. We've known you for 13 years and seen you live this out and engage with people and add value. But one thing that's really exciting for me, and the reason I'd love to ask this question, your stage of life is ahead of ours.
Mm.
What's your aha in this stage of life? What's the like?
Well, the biggest difference, I think, I am for the audience, I'm 57.
Holy smokes. I'm just kidding.
You're very young.
Thanks. Now I feel way better. No, I mean, I see 60. I see 60 and I'm thinking, what? And I see it, more for my wife than I see it for me, because I just still picture us in our early 30s, except for a couple of creeks and all these other stuff. But the biggest aha came with grandkids.
Oh.
And we've got 2 grandkids now, and there is, it's like, oh man, you did this on purpose. It's like some of the, I want to talk to the folks on the podcast here more than that are listening in, more than y'all, to answer this question, is that the hard part about listening to people like the Fishers share their success with intentionality is measuring what they've done against what you've done and feeling poorly about it. I mean, it's exciting to me, and in talking with y'all, it's like, okay, I want to go back and do this with what was left of my life, but my time with my kids in my house is gone. Like, it's like they're all adults now, and so the big aha for me is, how do I take these and do 2 things? One, how do I not miss opportunities with my grandkids? I don't want to be the grandkid or the grandparent that just gives them the ice cream or the lollipop and gives them all the things that the parents hate. I want to be the grandfather and take advantage of being a grandpa. My name's Papa to all the grandkids. Papa, come. I don't want to miss a moment of being the dad I wish it would have been in my role as Papa. So that's number 1.
Yeah.
And 2, I can take this intentionality and I'm still raising my kids as old as they are.
Yeah.
I thought once you get them to a certain point, they're adults, they're friends, you move from, king to coach to, to peer and all these other things. But I kind of thought you stopped raising them, but I haven't. And I can take every lesson that has been learned on this call today and bring that bearing of intentionality to investing in them and supporting them, and same with work and everything else. But that's the biggest aha, is the kind of second chance you get as being a grandparent. So
that's amazing. That's a great answer.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Challenging.
God's new mercies every single day, right?
Oh, absolutely. They are. I mean, there's a ton of ahas this season of life. There's obviously a lot of things that you wish you would have done, but I also know how ferociously, and y'all know this, just in the conversations that we've had, I have ferociously pursued intentionality myself and Carol ourselves all along. So I know that there's a measure of regret I won't have, but taking inventory of those things where I still have gaps and filling in with intentionality is worth the effort. So
that's amazing.
That's cool. Brian, I got one thing. I just want to share this with you really quick, and
do it, and then we'll wrap.
If people want to not listen, that's up to them. But this is really for you. I was in your first Disciples Made class when you said, hey, I'm going to intentionally disciple men. And it was early. We were doing this soap thing. I was the worst writer 13 years ago. I think we were like sharing them with the church, and I think I had 2 and they had to be cleaned up, right? Because it was rough. But 13 years later, I write a soap every morning.
Wow.
And I'm I get a soap from my son every morning.
Yeah, there you go. It's glare.
And he's 15, and he'll write out his soap, and if he's got something that he's dealing with or whatever, it's kind of our engagement around that. It's the segue into discipleship. So it's like there's an intentional grandkid from Brian Phipps right there,
Well,
right?
Two, because we have Angie doing the same thing, and she does it daily with a friend and has for years now. So it's big multiplication factor.
Isn't that the deal? Isn't that the deal? Man, that's what we want more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
There's curriculum companies that want to sell a product, and of course they want to do good things with their product, especially Christian curriculum stuff. But we want to help people develop habits that get instilled in their kids and in their kids' kids all the way down, and the impact that it has relationally and intentionally and all these other things. That's what we are all about. So if I was to do a CTA or a call to action, which I usually do on these things, it's how are you leveraging, not you, Cheryl and Christian, but you all and everyone else listening, how are you leveraging the resources that you use intentionally for your spiritual formation to do more than learn and do more than be transformed, but allow that transformation to just flow out, to use Christian's and Cheryl's terms, add value to others, because it's only when you turn that out and focus in that direction that you truly find what it means to live fully alive. Christian, Cheryl, thank you for your time. Thank you for all the friendship and love and encouragement and support you've given to help make all this a reality. We love you both and appreciate you for being here.
Thank you, Brian.
We love you too, Brian.
Love you.
Thank you for the time.
So much.
You bet. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.